Rosh Hashanah, Per Gimel Mishnah 3:5, in the last of the three Mishnayos, talking about blowing of instruments under various scenarios in the Beis HaMikdash. Now we're talking about the blowing on the 10th of Tishrei in the Yovel year. The pasuk says, "V'havarta shofar trua b'chodesh hashvi b'asar l'chodesh b'yom ha'kippurim ta'aviru shofar b'chol artzechem," which means you blow the shofar, a trua, blasting on the 7th month, on the 10th of the month, 7th month being Tishrei, 10th month and then being like Yom Kippur, Yom Kippurim, the shofar will pass throughout your land. So that means that it starts out by the shofar being blown in the Beis HaMikdash, as we'll describe here, and then after that, every individual Jew blows the shofar as well throughout the country. So the point of this blowing of the shofar on the 10th of Tishrei, on the Jubilee year, is twofold. The first is really, as the pasuk says, likro dror, to declare freedom, and that's the freedom for Avadim and Eved Ivri, all the Avadim Ivrim, all the Jewish servants that were committed into servitude. They all go free on the Yovel on this day, and also any land that had been sold prior to Yovel now reverts back to its original owners. Okay, this, by the way, this mitzvah of blowing on Yovel, you never heard of it before. The reason why is because it's been no longer in effect since a long time ago. The mitzvah of Yovel requires the Jews to be back in their lands, everyone there, and really since Bais Rishon time, since, Reuven and the tribes of Reuven and Gad and half of Sheva and Menashe were exiled from their lands on the Transjordan already. There's no more Yovel, so we wait for Mashiach to come back before Yovel coming back into effect, or at least all the Jews can return to land if that happens before Mashiach's coming. So the Mishnah here says, and this is the same time as the previous two Mishnayos, Shava HaYovel Rosh Hashanah. What one does on the Yovel year is shaveh, it's equal to what one does in Rosh Hashanah. L'tekiya v'lebrachos, both in terms of tekiya and in terms of brachos. In tekiya we could be referring to the instrument used, so just as this Tana had held that the Yael, the ibex horn, is the horn of choice when it comes to Rosh Hashanah, so too when one blows on the Yovel year, it's the ibex horn, the Yael, that should be used. Now the second pshat, an additional pshat, is when we talk about tekiya, we're talking about the amount of tekiyos, the number of blasts that must be blown. Later on in the Masechta we'll discuss how things play out today. We have lots of blasting going on in the shul on Rosh Hashanah, I know. But essentially, you need 3 blasts of 3 sets of 3 blasts, maybe better saying it. Each set comprises a trua, which is preceded and succeeded before and after with a tekiya. The tekiya is a single long blast. The trua is the broken blast. So you have tekiya, trua, tekiya, that's set 1. Again, tekiya, trua, tekiya, that's set 2. And then finally tekiya, trua, tekiya, set 3, and you're done. So it's a total of 9 blasts, 3 times 3. Just super briefly, but I'm going to go back to it later on in another Mishnah, Bez Hashem, is since there's a doubt over what constitutes a tekiya, what constitutes a trua, the broken blast, whether it's, I'll call it the 3 or the 9 or the 3 and 9 together. So therefore, you end up at a minimum in Shul and Rosh Hashanah blowing all the possibilities. So you have 3 sets of 3 of the trua being 3, and 3 sets of 3 of the trua being 9. Again, we call them trua and tekiya, and we call them trua and shavarim. But they're both what the question of what constitutes tekiya, and then so that's 2 sets of 9, if you will. Then there's a third set, which is where we blow both the 3 and the 9 blasts together, both what we call a tekiya and a shavarim together. A trua and a shavarim together. I'm sorry. And that being the case, those are 3 sets of, not 3, but 3 sets of 4, because it's preceded by tekiya, ends with the tekiya, and then have both a trua and a shavarim in the middle. So that's a total of 3 times 4 is 12. 12 plus the other 2 sets of 9, 18 gives a total of 30. So 30 blasts are really the minimum to get all the possibilities in. Okay, but in any case, that same story, whatever we said about Rosh Hashanah, however it applies, will also apply to what blowing is going on in the Yovel year. That's what it means here, second pshat, and what it means that they're shaveh and tekiya. And also the brachos, also in the brachos that are said, This is a reference to in Rosh Hashanah. Part of the tefillah we have the unusual Shemona Esrei that has 9 different brachos, blessings in it. The usual 3 beginning and 3 ending, like every Shemona Esrei. But here you have 3 in the middle. Those 3 in the middle referred to as Malchuyos, Sochronos, and Shofros. So you have those same 3 in the middle, another, for a total of 9 that we pray on the Yom Kippur of the Yovel year. Fine. So that's what it means, the brachos. Now, the reason why they're Shaved, the same on the Yovel year as well as every Rosh Hashanah, is based on a Gezerah Shava. Gezerah Shava means there's a linguistic connection that alludes to the connection between 2 different areas. The Gezerah Shava is from the term B'chodesh Hashvi'i, the 7th month, which applies in both of these passages. You can't just make up a Gezerah Shava, you need to have a tradition for it, but our Tana holds there is a tradition for Gezerah Shava, connecting it to and teaching you that the rules that apply to the shofar blowing on Rosh Hashanah are the same as the rules that apply on the Yovel year. Now, Rabbi Yehuda, the Mishnah continues on, Omer, he disagrees. He says, Barosh Hashanah token b'shel zacharim. He says, no, the proper animal to be the source for your shofar on Rosh Hashanah should be our zacharim, should be a ram horn, not a yael, not an ibex horn. The reason why is because the ram's horn is, as we said, kafuf, it's bent over, and he says that is the proper mode and posture one should take when he approaches Rosh Hashanah, being submissive, in submission, and so that's Rosh Hashanah. And he says of a Yovel b'shel Ye'elim. He says, Rabbi Yehuda says, for the Yovel you do use the Yael horn, the ibex horn, because he doesn't have a tradition of the Gezerah Shava. Since there's no Gezerah Shava, there's no reason to connect Rosh Hashanah to Yovel year. And he says in the Yovel year, there's no issue of submission. To the contrary, when you're blowing to release the slaves, so the slaves should hold their heads up high in freedom. They're being kored dror. And that being the case, so the appropriate symbolic horn to use would be the horn of a Yael, a long, straight horn. So Rabbi Yehuda disagrees on both points. Now, the halacha l'maisa is not actually either of these 2 shitas. There's a third shita brought in the Gemara. That's the shita of Rabbi Levi. And Levi holds that